Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. From Canada, our guest today, Dr. Manon Bolliger, incredible background, been doing what she's been doing for a very long time. Yours truly is actually going to read from her bio because it's got a lot of detail. It's incredible. She and I have interacted a bunch. She's had me as a guest on her own show. She's host of the Healers Café. I'm going to get to that in just a second. I also wanted to mention that the show has had a remarkable streak of guests like Dr. Manon Bolliger either sign up, get booked, or tape recently. So I hope you're looking at some of the social media posts. I hope you're checking out all the episodes. We've had Lorna Byrne, the Irish angel mystic. Her show will be airing in August. Dr. Eben Alexander and Karen Newell have agreed to come on and tape in July for probably September. Karen will come back solo. Jennifer McLean, 25-year healer, originally out of Canada, but now in LA, and a bunch of other, Jannica Oneus, Wisdom of North out of Norway. She's fantastic. So wait and see. But today's guest has an incredible background. What I'm going to mention first before I do any reading, first time I've ever done this, but I have to cheat and look at this. And I think I could wing a lot of it. She's been helping doctors and naturopaths these days tap what they've got. And I think that's probably one of the biggest highlights. She's got a bunch of books. So here it goes. She's a deregistered and now retired board-certified naturopathic physician with 30 plus years of clinical experience. She's trained 2,500 plus students in Bowen therapy, from rural farmers in Nova Scotia, CEOs in Toronto, and triathletes in British Columbia. She's helped an average of 150 patients per week. She's worked awfully hard, but she's super chillaxed. And again, she helps like a weather vane to point you from up here to get you out of what you know long enough to start tapping some of that inner organic wisdom that you've got. Trust your instincts. So during her master's in law at McGill, top university in Canada, she became acutely aware of the financial and political underpinnings in healthcare, the importance of informed consent and freedom of choice. So she's actually got a pretty big cause or pursuit in helping others be more aware of what's going on in the medical community and how they're handling, let's say, patient rights and stuff like that. She does have a Telegram channel. You can apply to have access to it. It's Patients for Rights. That, again, she'll cover in a little bit. She's going to cover some of this during the show. As a survivor of stage 4 cancer, she designed her programs based on her own experience as both a patient and a doctor. She's going to share, I'm not going to call it a war story, but a healing story there. Pretty phenomenal. Marion founded Bowen College in 2008 to reflect the importance of empowered decision-making. She understands that real health is about one's physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional well-being as a whole. Marion is the author of the Amazon bestseller, What Patients Don't Say If Doctors Don't Ask, The Mindful Patient-Doctor Relationship. Also a healer in every household, looking beyond your symptoms. And in January of 2022, what if your body is smarter than you think? A step-by-step process to health sovereignty. She's spoken on international stages like JT Fox's Money, Health, and Business, TEDx Talk in Las Vegas, and has appeared on ABC, CTV, and NBC. And again, she hosts the Healers Café podcast, maybe 200 or so episodes. I know we had the pandemic and everything, but it's been around since 2017. I think we've covered a lot of the bases. Manon, welcome. Bonjour. Everything good there?
Oh, thank you. And it's always a pleasure to connect with you. And I'm really happy if I can, enlighten in any way this conversation wherever it needs to go. So thank you for having me.
Well, we've had some beautiful, beautiful interactions. So I'm very thankful that you're here. I think the audience is going to really take to what you have to offer. You've been doing this a while, and you're like a lighthouse in a way, and there's been a lot of fog. You help people stay the course. They're going to figure this out one way or another on their own, because that's what life is. If you're not getting what you want, it's experience. And there was one other thing about experience, but I'll do it this way. Everyone has the ability to listen more. And if we simply just pump the brakes a little on the knowing, and we listen more, less conflict would result in any given situation. Now, if you think I said that, it was actually Abe, an angel, the Abraham of old, but it sounds good. Okay, Manon, take us through a little bit about how you help people today, and then we're going to get back to the sort of trajectory of how you got to be a healer's healer in a way.
Okay, well, today I run courses that are mostly online, though I have retreats coming up in Mexico. And I'm doing, now that in Canada we can touch again, because it's a touch therapy based program, which, you know, was not popular at some point because everyone was afraid for all different types of reasons. But, you know, as a society, I think we have to come back to understanding that touch and certain types of touch, this is very therapeutic, but very less is more oriented. So it's sort of based on the idea that the body has all the wisdom and that all we're doing is tapping into it and allowing the body to heal. Now that's one piece of it. So that's part of what I do. And the other part is, well, through my books, I run, you know, different workshops. I have a program called, sorry, I have to, there we go. It's annoying when these frogs come up. Anyways, but I have a program called Listen, which you were talking about before, if we would only listen more. And this is sort of an introspective, step by step, back to loving yourself, appreciating yourself, listening more, trusting more, and intuiting, allowing that inner, you know, wise one to really come and help guide and you know, how to deal with your thoughts, you know, because they're going to be there anyways. So how do we deal with them, and how do you learn to not pay attention to them? Because they're thoughts, that they have a job and they do it very well. So what we need to do is reconnect. So those are the main courses I do. And then I am very active on the front of speaking out about the subjects that I've always been interested in, which is patients' rights, informed consent, and you know, to create autonomy, to really understand that we're sovereign human beings, and that this earth, we have a relationship to this earth, to ourselves, to other people, and that we need to really understand how deep that goes. And I think that's really one of my biggest passions, is not to abdicate our responsibility or our knowledge to just like say, oh, well, they know better, experts know better. You know, we're in an expert world, and you know, and do they know better about you? I don't think so. You know, they may explain things, which is, you know, valid, and you know, if it's science, real science, then there's going to be debate, there's going to be evolution, there's going to be changes, and that's super exciting. I mean, I love looking at that and considering it. But you know, the truth about you is inside you. That's my fundamental belief.
Okay, so, and especially when you look at the stage 4 cancer story, which we're going to get to later, the naturopath role first, and now as a deregistered and retired figure on that front, and you're teaching people instead. Can you take us through the naturopath role, what you did for that very long time, how you were helping people one way, what was dawning on you or dawned on you at the beginning? I'm sure there was a learning curve in the middle. I'm sure then at the end, you were also going through a lot as well. Take us through sort of the stages in that career trajectory.
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is it was complete disbelief for me. I did not know, therefore I was not connected consciously. But here's the secret thing. In my diary, which I wrote every day, I wrote what's going on. And maybe some days I missed, you know, but I actually have written in my diary, this is the day my cancer starts. But it was my unconscious mind, or my superconscious, some people would say, that knew. And I wrote this down, but I have no personal recollection of that insight. But the proof is in the writing. It was there, and I came back to the diary several years later, actually, and I went, oh my goodness,
Wow.
I actually knew, but I didn't pay attention. So
Can
that
you,
was the first
yeah,
one.
can you explain though, as a naturopath, what were you doing for folks and sort of what the career?
Oh, my career piece. Okay, what I was doing. So as a naturopath, I mean, maybe it's worth explaining what that is because some people may not know. So we're trained to diagnose and to treat people. And our diagnosis is a larger scope than the typical general practitioner scope, which we use the same, the labs, the x-rays, all the blood work, the genetics. We can use anything that most general practitioners have, but we also use Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, homeopathy, tongue diagnosis, nail diagnosis, eye diagnosis. Like we can use many more things that help us figure out what's going on, with the patient and with them, not to them. So that's kind of what I was doing. My specialties were homeopathy, which it's been made taboo because, if there's nothing in it, then how could it work? Well, it's energetic, but as we're starting to understand the world much better, and, not that biology isn't significant, but physics is certainly something that's really coming up much stronger now, and people are starting to get the effect of imprint on water, mostly water. So even if it's past the content, is past Avogadro's number, which means that it's so small that it's non-material, the way it's done is very powerful because it looks at all of the person. So instead of just saying, oh, you have a, cancer, and therefore that's it. It's like we look at every single thing about that person, their mental state, their emotional state, and every other body part, because we see people as one. They're like, you can't divide it. You can't just say, oh, there's a cancer, and therefore sort of take the Cartesian model and go, oh, well, we'll just analyze that and take it out, right? It's like, it's like we're in such a society that if something doesn't work or they don't understand it, like tonsils, oh, you just take them out. Appendix, oh, useless organs, take them out. Now we're starting to get finally, oh, they actually had a function. Ooh, maybe we shouldn't have taken it out. Same with DNA, right? There's a long part of the DNA that we don't understand yet. So you know how it's called? Junk DNA. It's junk because
That makes sense.
Because we don't know what it is. Well, it's not junk. Hey, what if it really had significance, right? So anyhow, I'm distracting from the point you were asking, but I'll go back.
Sure.
So
when you get people talking as patients, though, in the past, wouldn't every other one, every fifth one, in the way that they talk, would they hand out clues or breadcrumb trail so that you would hear and you're like, oh, you just went through 5 divorces in 4 years, and this happened, they're talking about this, and they're acting like it's not even they don't realize it's on the radar screen, but they're coughing up some of the goods they've been going through. And so you're Sherlock Holmes putting a much bigger picture together.
Yeah, correct. And the interview's 2 hours, so it's not like a quick 15-minute thing.
Yeah.
And we go through everything, and what people bring up is usually things that they haven't digested fully.
Which is what energy swirls around and it builds up in you, and you're surprised you got ill later.
Yeah, like people ask me my health history, and I completely forget that at one point there was so-called cancer, right? It just doesn't. That's why even actually the word survivor, I'm looking for a better word, because it doesn't define me anymore, and or against it anymore. It just isn't there. It's not even in the picture anymore.
Good for you for that, because there's a lot of us that you hang your hat on a peg, and it could be you were a survivor of this or that, or you were this is what happened way back when, And if you don't refer to it, don't put your focus. It's the opposite of what you said earlier, which is the physics thing and the, what you can't see, but where you put your focus is where you go. So if you don't focus on the negative, not a bad thing.
Or even transform what was negative into positive, right? Like that is ultimately, I think, the people who do very well, they understand that conditions and diseases appear for them, not to them.
Ooh, I love that. And I mean, not that we're encouraging disease, but I mean, that's literally, you were just citing Ted Lasso, the latest season, the Amsterdam boat scene, where literally the Amsterdam, we find out in the grand finale, I don't want to blow this for anybody, but the guy's a pilot for like Royal Dutch Airlines. But he fishes the owner of the soccer team, Manchester, whatever they're called, I forgot the name, out of the canal in Amsterdam, and getting her clothes dried and stuff. And he says something very profound. Maybe episode 5, season 3, if I got that right. Events don't happen to us; they happen for us, and it's exactly what you just said. One of the best bits of wisdom we could offer everybody out there. I mean, think about life, how boring it would be if it was just all fun, roses, unicorns, sparkle, rainbow. Also, you got to have some ebb and flow. That's what it's about here on planet Earth. Do you want to share now, perhaps the stage 4 cancer? Describe what it was, describe where you got to, describe that moment on the, I can't remember exactly, the table. The nurse was like, you better stay. You got to listen to the rest of this. And you just were getting a whole different vibe happening. It was one of those extra special moments in life that just took you in a different direction.
Yeah. So at this point, I had a 1-year-old and 2 older kids, so 8 and 12. And I had gone to check how I was, right? So then, you have to go to the oncologist. Okay, you go to the oncologist. I have nothing against diagnosis, right? Let's find out what's going on, right? Sometimes they say that if you don't know, you're better off. And if that's the case, cool. But if you are going to know, or you might know, then I think you got to check in. Do you actually want to go ahead with what's going on? So I went in. Yes, I do, because I like facts, right? I like to know. so it's like, fine. I went in, and then it's like, yeah, you got to sign all these papers, and how they make it so small that you just can't see everything. And as you know, my background is as a lawyer, right? So did I read everything? No. I just signed, and I'm good to go. I think I'm gonna get the diagnosis, and they'll let me know what they can do for me. And so I'm here, and I'm on actually an operating table, because at that time, this is what they were doing. They were doing hysterectomies. Now, I wasn't going to have another child, but it's like, I felt this doesn't feel right. Because here's the thing, the cancer was actually a cervical cancer. And because of my background, because we get trained in histology, we know that one can't lead to the other. They're not in the same cells. And so why are they doing a hysterectomy? So it's like, okay, whoa, I'm just part of some random protocol. They fit me in here, and then they'll probably do whatever else they do drug-wise. And anyway, but this was the rational part that not everyone might know, because I was grateful to have the knowledge. But what was happening inside me is I was laying there, and all these nurses and well-meaning people were, hovering around me and guilting me, like saying, you have to. How could you not? Because I was starting to resist, right? Saying, I don't want this. I don't feel it's right. Can you give me 3 months? I'm going to try other ways, and they're saying, no, if you step out of here, we don't look after you. No, you cannot be followed. No, everything was no. It's not like I could just have a little bit of a follow-up, or, try something natural first, nothing. So, the pressure was really on. How could you do this as a mother? You're so selfish, oh, I don't know, I got called every name.
What decade was this? What, the 90s, 80s? I mean, this is a lot of pressure.
I mean, 5 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So was it, how can you just, without getting into any more detail on it, but how would you just collectively describe, is it a group that's pretty aggressive about surgery? How would you describe that much pressure in a way that we could relate?
I think it's, well, we can just look at what happened recently with a very strong narrative, right? Like
Mm.
when people believe that they're doing the right thing, not everyone has the same medical knowledge, right? So maybe some of the nurses wouldn't have known that one cancer doesn't, that it can't spread that way. Like, so there's ignorance, but as in not intentional negative stuff.
Right.
Then there's people who don't want to lose their jobs, so they're not going to speak out. And then there's just a belief system that if you do this and you tell the patient it's going to be all right and it's good, that the patient will get better, which is the placebo effect, which does work, right? Where we are very, very subjected to, or that's not the English word. I'm in my French here, sorry. We're very, not gullible, but it's like we're well positioned to do very well with placebo because our body wants to heal. So it's not like we try to make this up. It just is what it is, right? So I think, there's that. And then, I mean, there's also financial gains by doing certain things. Like
Operations equal dollars.
Yeah, there's a dark side to everything.
Yeah.
And so I think if you look at the narrative that people were under, the pressure, so, one nurse is saying, you have children, how could you do that? And then the other one chimes in, how selfish. And then it's suddenly like they want to fit into the nursing group. So off they go, all battering me. And it's like, so that's kind of how I experienced it. But I had this voice louder than all of theirs.
This is the part I've heard before, and I love this part. So yeah, this is what the audience wants to like put the ears out and listen to.
And so it says, it's not your time. It's like, it's not my time. And this comes back to another experience much earlier, which we can or cannot talk about, but whatever, it doesn't matter. I've been there before. I recognized it as a clear, strong, intuitive, protective, light, almost white coloring that just made the room kind of disappear, cleared the grounds, and I got off the table and I walked out and I didn't care. And I knew I was doing the right thing with every cell of my body.
And now this is the second, third, fourth, fifth, something like that time. And there were some other major moments where you've learned to trust. If it's like a Hollywood effect, spotlight's kicking in. I'm being a little like, but very divine, very something you can't ignore. Felt good. You got instruction. So repeat it one more time for us. Basically, you heard it's not your time. Did you hear anything else?
Nope. That was it. It's not your time. And the rest was more the light, the whiteness, the feeling enveloped. Yeah, like I felt surrounded, and not by them.
Yeah.
The nurses and the doctors, and all these plea bargainers.
We wish them all well, but this wasn't what it was about at all.
It wasn't, it was no longer about them. And then this kind of like covered and shaded, the light shaded them out, and they weren't there anymore. And I just got up and that was it. And I knew I couldn't come back, which was, that part, was upsetting, but I knew that I would find that the next thing would show up. I was on the path that was to be mine. And, when I've taught the training of the many steps to getting there, I think, yeah, where do you build that deep trust, right? That's one of the questions that I've spent time breaking down and going, how did I know? How did I really know that this is the voice that I can trust, as opposed to a thought. That would,
Yes.
well, your chances are blah, blah.
Never tell me the chances, Han Solo.
No, but if you think about it, the concept is kind of crazy because there's lots, and I've talked to many data people, right, that actually study this, and I'm going, well, how do I know that the data concerning me is going to indicate which way I am going to fall? And it's like, it's so beyond what they can research that it's not valid for the individual.
That's the eternal question in a way for all of us, for all of
Yeah.
mankind. Oh, and I would add, how do you know a good cup of coffee is a good cup of coffee? That's also the heart of the matter here. How do you trust what you can trust? And then, I mean, I always say if you ordered another cup of coffee immediately because you're like, damn, excuse my language, but I like coffee, and that was good. I'll have another, please. Thank you. Then
Yeah.
Yeah. And you go back to the diner or wherever you got it because you frequent the place. So.
And then, I would say after this initial trust, then I had ideas and values and principles that I had worked out and that also made sense. For example, one of the big principles that affected me directly is, why take out a cancerous organ when I haven't dealt with the cancer in my relationship? It's like you can't cut out the way that I was being in relation to another person, or allowing the other person to be towards me, whatever. It's always a dynamic. You can't cut that out and then hope the cancer is going to go away. You actually have to work on this part and identify it and resolve it and look at it. Then the cancer will go away anyways.
And you find that approach in a lot of indigenous cultures for not just hundreds of years, but longer, all over the world, and that there's a root cause.
Yes.
Yeah. So now, can we jump tangentially straight to, let's say you're having a retreat in Mexico. Tell us where, by the way. But let's say a doctor's coming in, a surgeon over there, a dentist even. There's people who know there's some more than just the linear. It's not just straight numbers, straight routine. I mean, if you look at dentistry, and I don't want to knock anybody, I've loved all my dentists, but it's gotten even more complex and more tight and more rigid in how they handle stuff. And there's what I love is every one of my dentists has actually had such an amazing presence that it just feels good going to the dentist, even if there's a high-pitched whine and you're getting something serious done. But I mean, in a way, just by getting within their ball of light or in their presence, you're getting an amazing I don't know. It's like your barber, if this is going to relate for some people. I think hair salons, barbershops are also like psychotherapists in a way. They're used to helping you. You sit in that chair. I fall asleep all the time. I've had some amazing barbers over the years. I also feel like they lift your troubles off of you. That's their unofficial role. But so tell us a little bit about what X, Y, and Z professionals, they come in. You show them that there's more to the picture. And can you just take us through a little bit of that, and including the touch stuff?
Yeah. So, I mean, well, the truth is it's all different people are attracted to this for all different reasons, right? But there's always a little piece where it's like, what if, so I love skeptics. So, so I think I attract them naturally.
That's good. You have a healthy attitude about that, and you're not taking anybody's grief and not worried about it. You're here to help.
And sometimes it's not the right fit. It's not what they want, and it's like, it's fine. Like, that good for them that they would try it. Now, most of the people, in fact, I really can't think of any examples to the negative. They've all learned something massive from this. It's changed them profoundly. Whether they, let's say for Bowen therapy specifically, whether they're going to find the time to put it into their clinic or practice that's a separate issue, right? But I've had people like that have done it, trained, and then they've sent other people in to do the training to do that part of the practice, right? So, like a lot of naturopaths, they have a specialty in one thing, so they may not do Bowen therapy, but they'll hire a nurse, or they'll hire a physio, or sometimes a disenchanted chiro. There's a lot of those who are kind of done with snapping the body and want a more holistic way of achieving very, very similar results, but that lasts, right? So I think it just depends. And the way I run these is I actually interview everybody as if they are coming in personally for treatment. And then, because of the power of a group dynamic, and this is with everyone's permission, and we sort of set the stage for potentiality to take place because it can, so then I teach the materials, and same with all my instructors. We're all trained. I train them all to do it this way. I then go, okay, this is what we do for the knees. This is what we do for the shoulder, for example. But if they're in grief, we have to do this first. We have to look at the kidneys and whatever. So I will go through step by step the entire curriculum, but looking at everyone, what they need in their healing process. So people are kind of going, oh my God, I've never been able to be no low back pain. I've had it for 10 years. It's totally gone. And then it's like, okay, cool, let's go on, and then the other person's migraine that they've, have for whatever, recurring, but, so this, I wouldn't know this on the spot. I would know it retrospectively that they haven't had one since, this kind of thing. It just, all these ailments lift. And so what happens to their experience of it, they get healed and they learn a modality. And that's not the end to learning. There's actually an entire school that it's called the Healing Accelerator, and that's like a 4-day event. In Mexico, it's a week with, breaks to go to the beach.
Where in Mexico?
In Puerto Vallarta.
Yes. Okay, good. So can you give us one very specific example so people understand when you lay hands on, it could be in an instructive way where you're actually doing healing, or it's both. Give us a very specific, like, kind of mini case study of this, the person's this, and you did this. And so they actually can grasp a transaction, we'll call it energetic.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's hard to demonstrate it on.
Oh yeah, but
the moves they're just moves. They're very gentle. And they're on points that are either marma points or meridian lines or fascial lines. So that's where they are.
Yep.
And they're synchronized in a certain way. There's a logic that we're coming to understand of how they're placed. So it's very interesting. Not everything was clear to me how it all fits together. I can just say that. But let's say it's frozen shoulder, that's my specialty. So I mean, it's my specialty because you deal with one and suddenly you have 200 of them walking in, right? So it's like, same with sciatica, that's another one.
oh,
Right?
okay. Yeah.
I'll give you that story. That's a hilarious story. Plus I can talk about it publicly because he made a public spectacle of it. And so I do this little work, they lay down, and his case was sciatica, and he had it for like 25 years, but this time it went on and off, but worse and worse. In the last 10 years, it was terrible. And anyway, so I did what I would do normally on a first visit, and he didn't feel anything, no change, nothing. So he paid, but like, another waste of money, whatever. And he walked out, and next day on his oh no, it was that day he said, oh, this technique I just tried, did Bowen therapy, and he said, Dr. Manon Bolliger, she barely touched me, and guess what? It didn't work.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I'm shocked. Anyway, and then after that, the next day, he was pain-free. And so he was like, okay, wait a minute here. This is, like, I owe her one. It was apparently what he said to himself. So then he came back to make sure that this is for real, and there was a little bit of tweaking I had to do for it to be long lasting. And basically in 2 visits, that was it. So for almost 2 years on his radio show, he would say, if you've got sciatica, go and I, from him alone, I had about 4,000 patients.
Oh my God. Yeah, I gotta replicate that here. Okay, that's incredible. And this is in Canada, I take it, yes?
Yeah, it was in BC.
Okay, so can I take a stab at your, I'll call it childhood. You were under 20 in Greece, but can I take a stab at the story for 30 seconds only? Okay, you had an experience, you're on a Greek island. It was horrific. It was in the cards for you somehow. And there was violence involved. There was a pistol involved. There was a lot of other detail involved in which most people probably wouldn't have survived. It wasn't written that it was your time to go. In fact, the light came back in the middle of a horrific incident, and stuff was happening to you. Really bad actors, leave it at abstract. And again, you were under 20 and just, trying to survive in the moment, but you heard a voice, you had light, you had sudden it was the very first time for all this, right? Yeah. And as a result of that divine intervention, you were able to survive a situation, get out of there. And there was something we'll just leave it this way. If you tried to recount the story to friends, family, and others, there would be a lot of just spin the wheel reactions from, support to doubt to how did you not like this or that? Well, we second guess. Look at any Twitter story or any social media story, and there'll be 4,000 experts. A plane goes down and everyone's an FAA expert or NTSB safety expert, the next thing you know. So you went through all that, but it didn't faze you. In fact, you had a cooler, calmer, broader, compassionate you that sort of arose from that situation. So no matter how horrific it was, I mean, as an individual, I'd put it up there with being on a plane with 500 people, which I'm sure planes aren't that big, but somehow you were the only one to survive in a Colombian jungle crash. It was like that. It was really bad. And so we taped an hour episode 3 weeks ago. And when that came up, holy cow, was there so much energy flying around. So we're not touching the topic any more than that. It was something, again, that you have to view it as a third, a 10th, half. You had an amazing foundational experience. No matter how bad it was, it left you with a broader, compassionate perspective and ready to learn. And it was part of a series of future experiences that left you in a great driver's seat to help others, is how I'll put it, if you don't mind me saying.
No, I feel that way. Absolutely. And it also helped me, like you're saying, people would have a million, I should have, I could have, whatever. Many things I could have done potentially, but not if you were me, not if you were, like, obviously, it's nothing like any of these things. They were more their story, their issues, their discomfort with the uncomfortable, it's like, and it's hard to be in another person's body, unless you're in that body.
Yeah. And that's exactly the way you put it is exactly right. It could be, someone who's 25 dating somebody who's 50, and just, you could be sitting having lunch with them and you're hearing the news for the first time and your initial reaction is like, what? And, you forget that love is love and two people can, blah, blah, blah. So tell us, more about your trajectory as a healer. Do you feel like you've come a long way, baby? Virginia Slims, I'm doing the advertisement logo from, I think, the 80s, that cigarette thing. Where are you on this whole trajectory? Are you totally enjoying what you're doing now?
I am. I mean, you know, I find it difficult that due to the corruption of the, you know, the boards and the government and all of this business, that yeah, that our rights have been infringed upon, and our knowledge, and now it's all coming out, you know, of course, we were right in the first place, whatever, it doesn't matter, but it's ruined the medical system. It's, you know, 17,000 healthcare workers have left in Canada, right? So
Yeah, it co-opted a lot of stuff, but the same thing happened in the States. It's everywhere. It's an opportunity for more awareness. I think people have been put in situations where there's a good portion of people who have had to go through that introspective, reflective phase, and they've gained an awareness. They might not be a nurse again or a doctor again, but they might be a patient advocates rights person. Did I say that the right way? The other, you know, whichever way the words are supposed to come out.
No, and I think, you know, where I had gotten in my practice anyways is, you know, I stopped at the beginning. I wanted to do everything right, and I believed that I was pivotal to their healing experience, you know, and therefore, if I did anything wrong, it would ruin everything, you know, and I wasn't a surgeon. Okay, so if I got the right leg instead of the left leg, I would have done a mistake, and I've seen patients with those mistakes come to my practice, so I know they happen. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm really meaning more that if as a doctor you feel overly responsible for the patient and you feel overly implicated in their what's going to happen to them, then you're missing the mark quite a bit. And I realized that as the years were going by, I learned further and further to look at what's going on, really see what they want, and ask, you know, deeper and deeper questions. Like, for example, well, why do you want your frozen shoulder fixed?
That's a no-brainer, but I bet no one's thought of that before.
No, and it's kind of interesting. It's like, and you know, I've had looks, like I've had all kinds of looks, you know, but
when they speak, they're revealing their energy flow, and you can get a litmus test of where they're at, and you can hear, I don't know how to say it, whether they're on course for their truth, their personal path, or if they're off the mark. Because if they're not aligned, all the treatment in the world.
exactly, and that's part of it. And the other thing, it reminds them, you know, like I've had people say, well, because you know, and then they would burst out crying because I want to be able to pick my grandkids up, or, you know, and then it's like, you see the emotional aspect that really speaks out, and those barriers are, first of all, they're brought out, you know, what the real fear is. And I always say that you cannot heal in fear. We're not able to heal in fear. So when there's massive fear propaganda, for example, who can heal in this? You get rid of fear, whichever way you want to bust it. And so I busted by asking questions. And then they're like, oh, that's the big fear they have, that they won't be able to pick up their grandkids and do things with them. And then once we can go, well, okay, and why do you think you can't heal? And then it's like, well, because I tried this and I tried this, and I, you know, and I go, yeah. So, you know, not every therapy works, not always, you know. And then we kind of go back, but have you tried what I'm about to do? And it's like, no, I heard.
This is awesome. I actually love what you're saying, because again, we're very linear. And if you don't recognize the difference between thinking, which just like completely swamps us as an adult, as a kid, you were in your heart climbing the tree and everything else. But whatever the awareness, the love, the flow, the healing, everything's here when you're connected to everything. You know it in art, you know it in sports, you know it when you do good business, you're getting yeses all the time, you're a good salesperson, you know it, you know, just watching the trees or listening to birds. But we forget everything, and we also think like structure, and we accept that as the reality versus a broader, more compassionate, gentler, kinder experience.
Exactly. And so that's, you know, so that's kind of one of the simple examples of a setup. It's not it's a framing of the potential for healing. And
It's beautiful though, because you're literally getting the person to, you're putting all the chess pieces, but not in a linear way on the board. And you're seeing which, it's reading the tea leaves in a way, but they're putting the king in the wrong place. The queen over there, they're treating it like a pawn. And you're like, whoa, they don't see it. But when they're talking, and then you're helping them get a presence back, their own unique, authentic presence.
Exactly. And so then they're ready, because basically it's like, okay, well, let's just focus on making that a reality. Are you up for that? You know,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, why not? And then I can from there I get a sense, okay, we've got at least a 70% yes. So this is gonna work. We're ready.
Okay, you've got 3 books at least, but I know I've seen 3 that you held up before the show. We blew some sage and had you talk to an angel and Native American chief. We'll do that in a little bit. But and we've done that plenty of times before. I think maybe even on your show. You were kind enough to have me as a guest once or twice, right? On your show. And I've loved it every time, because you've been glowing every time I see you the last few years, and I'm just excited to see you every time. But could you you've got beautifully big books. Can you just differentiate between the 3 so people can understand what each book is about?
In the right order.
Yeah, and these are available on Amazon. It's Dr. Manon, Manon Bolliger, Bolliger.
Yeah, so this was my first, what patients don't say if doctors don't ask, the mindful patient-doctor relationship, which then I moved to this as I updated it a few years later. So that's the second edition, and I have a publisher for that one. And then and what it's about. Sorry.
Yes.
About the SOAP form, which is when we go see a doctor, we have to say, or the doctor has to do, subjective. So what's going on with you? That's usually in conventional medicine extremely short. Objective is what they can gather and see. Okay, they're limping or whatever. Assessment is whatever paradigm you're in, you're going to assess with the tools you have. And P should be plan, but far too often ends up in prescription.
Yeah, I saw that one coming.
Yes, I can see that. Anyway, so what I do is I really break down the whole process about that, so that it's been very useful. It's been used in certain schools, nursing schools as well, to really get people to understand what's behind the behind. You know, where are we really going, and where can we go, and what happens when people connect, when patients are allowed to really explain their subjective experience. Right, so that's what it is. And then it kind of leads to, you know, the understanding of suppressive therapies, not going to the root cause. It's sort of like everything, you know, like the basics of the misconceptions that we use as science.
So your book is a little bit like one of those fire watchtowers with searchlights all over it, shooting down to illuminate the subject, not the little magnifying glass that we typically use if we're a doctor somewhere or a nurse taking a look at the situation. And we're also under time pressure and economic pressure in an organization that really isn't about, hey, let's get to the root of this. Let's look at the bigger picture, what's going on in your life and everything else.
I think you nailed it. It's about disease management, not about disease cure or prevention, right? So
yeah.
So then I went to, am I showing it properly?
Yes.
Pillar in every household, and then it's simple solutions for stress. So with that, that's several years later, I've updated more of the research, and I kind of shifted gears a little bit into the importance of body work and trauma therapy, and why trauma lives in our body. which is really based on the work I do, the practice I have, is that I fundamentally believe that our traumas are lodged in our fascia. And that's actually what my TEDx talk was about in 2021 in Las Vegas. And that the trauma doesn't release until the person's ready to release it. Like if it's instigated, let's say if I do Bowen therapy and a person's not ready for it, doesn't have the coping skills, the mechanisms, whatever, the body is going to self-preserve. It's not going to allow information to surface that is too much to deal with.
Mm.
So when people are on the table and they discover things that happen to them,
Mm.
it's
They've blocked out or whatever.
yeah, it's in divine timing. It comes exactly when they need to. And I can give you actually, but I'll do that before the last book. I'll just share a story. It's mine, so I'm allowed to.
Yes.
So here we go. Trying to still be careful in case there's all-seeing eyes that are making sure that I'm not prescribing.
Exactly.
I went to a workshop, and this is goodness, 32 years ago, about 33 years. Anyway.
When you were 2, but okay.
Thank you, but no. No, I had just finished my naturopathic training actually. And so the fellow running this workshop was saying, is there anyone with knee problems? And we were about 30 people. So knee problems, it's like you'd think somebody would, but you know, we were all in our 30s-ish, you know, and so nobody really had anything. But I did. I said, well, I have weirdness about my knees. I can't call it pain, but I can't have needles, acupuncture points. I can't be massaged around them. I have this yucky feeling. That's all I could give him, right? So he goes, okay, fine, just lay on the table and, you know, but I was ready, right? Because like, I'm not a very big extrovert, but I thought I'm going to give this a go. I didn't have any clue why. I had this weirdness with my knees, right? So I laid on the table and then kind of moments into the treatment of, this is basically Bowen therapy, done one way, done on the physical level, but it doesn't matter if you know more than we are one, right? So it was easy. Yeah. I burst into this howling, screaming 2-year-old. And
oh my God.
I found myself literally in a crib, in a blue room, you know, looking up at things and unable to move. And what happened in the moment, in the recollection of it as a 2-year-old, but literally I had my 2 feet like pointing outwards with a metal bar held apart, like with this metal bar. So I couldn't like turn or shift. So I was frustrated like crazy. And at the time, this was a therapy. It's now debunked or defunct, whatever. But it was used to correct pronation, right? So my feet were turned inwards. Now they're turned outwards. But you know, this kind of brutal force was good enough for the time period. So they you know, that's what they thought. They didn't care about the impact on the hips or the knees or any other part of the body or the child, you know. And so after I stopped yelling and, you know, he put me on the side of the room and continued as best he could with me being a baby.
Yeah. He was shaken up and like, you know, a quick shot.
So then I you know, I came back to my adult self, and then I phoned my mom and I said, hey, was there ever a time where I wore these shoes with a metal bar, you know? And she goes, oh yes, I still have them for you. Yes. well-meaning and all. I mean, it had actually corrected my feet. So, you know,
Yeah, but
and whatever, you know, like I don't regret it because I have feet that go out. And then I came across a therapy that actually dealt with my knees. So I'm okay.
yeah, you're okay. But it's a good example whether we're talking just a particular type of fruit that you had a reaction to, experience, bad experience, worse experience, all sorts of trauma can lie hidden in the psyche for decades, if not 2 lifetimes away.
Exactly. Well, exactly. Yeah. And in this case, yeah, it was like I did not know this. I did not on any level know. And you know, my mom wasn't trying to keep it a secret, but she didn't tell me because it never came up, you know. So and so there it was like, wow. But my body, that's the whole point, was in that moment, willing and able to cope with this. And though I was awkward physically, you know, I'm also dyslexic, left and right, all these things. When I was taking the training course, and there was way too many of us, like I couldn't learn in those settings, you know. One could say I have learning difficulties, whatever, it's fine. It took me a lot to get how to do all this business. It was also not taught exactly the way I teach now, which is takes into consideration people just like me. So I have like ways of learning with pictures, with video, with I capture every angle.
So no matter what, the message is getting in one way or the other.
It is, but because of that experience, I was always, and the earlier experience,
Yeah.
I was always interested in trauma and how that works. And
So somebody out there watching though, and it's 3 years in the future, and they're like, hey, I don't mind either going to Canada, contacting you. Can you just say your website address, the number one way people would find you? It's going to be below the video, but can you give it to us now? Can you explain that, yes, people can contact you one-on-one for, we'll call it a consultation, but more, you know, for talking.
yeah, so I mean, I think I'll give Bowen College. So it's spelled B like Bob, OWEN, and then college is all one word, .com. And there it's also wherever the training is, because it's a different, I have a sister college in the UK as well.
Okay.
So that's one way. And my personal website, I don't know how to get rid of the doctor, which I'm supposed to, but it's Dr. Manon, spelled MANON, and then Bolliger, B like Bob, OLLIGER.com. And that has also my programs and my appearances and all of that. So you know, you can find out how to follow me. I have quite a bit of free materials and courses that you can take with me, but I don't do medical consultations.
No, we understand that, and especially, yeah. Okay, but again, a person's got something going on and they want to get in touch. Those are the best ways for them to figure it out. And retreats are usually you're teaching the skill that you can then, you know, use with others and stuff like that. But a person could show up possibly, depending on the retreat, for relief and so on. Yeah.
That happens accidentally.
Yes.
And nothing to do with it.
Yeah, nothing to do with it at all. That's the beauty of the body and the actual healing principle inside the body. Speaking of defying logic and everything else, here's sage. Typical sage you can get, that's the high-end sage now. It used to be inexpensive, $2 a bundle in the old days. Juniper Ridge in California. It's on my website. I'm not sponsored by them in any way. I'm lighting some, but I think it's a little more expensive. Again, go to a Whole Foods. I like them because they're consistent. The quality is great. They have great incense sticks. They have sweetgrass, Douglas fir, desert pineal, sage, white sage. This is the white sage here. Leave your eyes on the smoke, and it doesn't matter if it's 2025 and you're in Australia. I had 2 show hosts in Brisbane smell this through the computer screen. But if you want, what will you ask for? It's great to go linear and just smell some sage. Manon, you're getting it, yes?
Yes.
But why not do what she says, which is allow for a little more in life? Why not ask angels to bring you some flower smells on top of the sage, or at least have the sage do something? Clean out your house, spring cleaning, energetically get this place tippy top, or your back, or wherever. Have the sage go where it will, potluck or chef's choice. I'm looking at my microphone right here. But let the angels take, they know where you need a little bit extra sage smoke. Consider it healing, consider it love and light, universal love, whatever way you need to hear it. The only way that matters is the way you're talking in terms of structure, linguistics. There's other words I'm trying to get to. We all have our own way of relating to reality, and that's all that matters when it comes to each person out there. Okay. And with your permission, can I put a couple angels up? They might give us a topic or two to talk about. How about that?
Sure.
Okay.
And I'll talk about my most recent book too, because.
Oh yeah, no. Take us to your most recent book, because we skipped number 4. We only did the 3. Okay.
And it's actually on topic.
Yes.
Is what if your body is smarter than you think, right? And that's the thing, is that why not risk it? We don't know. It's like we have beliefs, and with time and with experience and with changes in the world, we believe different things, right? We think different things. And because the mind, the body, emotion, it's all connected, different possibilities happen on the physical level because your mind is not blocking possibility. Right? Like if I had looked at the sage before and I would say, oh, like, come on, through a screen.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right? But see, there is a way of explaining why I can smell it, right? Because I open up fully to the experience of it. Now, it could be my previous experience that then smells it on key, whatever. That could be one explanation, and there's a million more that I don't know, or that could exist, right? Like,
yes.
That thing is that, but it's a really nice experience, so why not have it?
And I'll take a stab at it's something I labeled concrete thinking. Like this is 10 or 12 years ago for I think my glow stick Zen book that's a ridiculous 1,700 pages, more like 4,000, 3,400 electronic, depending on which way you line it up. I did it just to get my whole experience out of me as I was popping. And I got help with angels and other figures, guides, religious, non-religious, telling me what to write. So I only wrote a third of that book. The Little Listening to Angels book is 100% them. It's a 15-minute read. But concrete thinking, I got to mention a total tangent. I had a little Twitter account back then, and still it's little today, but I mean, at least I've got tweets now. And what I'm saying is there's an Italian concrete company that followed me. No accident. Angels arranged for it. I had just written a chapter called Concrete Thinking, and an Italian concrete systems company that has no business ever finding me followed me, and it was the most funny thing you've ever seen. I have a photo of it today still, and it was angels just doing kind of a joke. And on top of that, there was a magazine article that was in like Architectural Digest or one of those design home with top designers around the world. There's a New York woman who uses concrete for home design, and it was Concrete Thinking again was the title of the article. And I'm just like, oh my God, the sense of humor from angels, the universe. If you just allow for it, you got to open up a magazine to see that stuff, or you got to look at your social account and get the joke. But I wanted to say that concrete thinking is simply us placing too much reliance on knowing, because we want to stop change. We want to fight, growing. We have a little bit of success, or we've got this situation. We don't want to explore. We don't want to stay open. Why? Everything's happening so fast. It's ebb and flow. Blame a lot of, let's blame everyone. Blame Canada. Let's do the old, I don't know if you know that. That's a reference to a comedy. But in doing that, we get so fixated that we block the ebb and flow of life actually living in our heart. And so there's a beautiful opportunity in each moment for all of us to live more, love more, allow more, and so on. Okay, so you've got those books. You've got the show. Can you tell us just a little bit about the Healers Café?
Well, I was going to tell you a little bit more about this.
Please.
Is not only was it the title of my talk, I ended up coming up with an alternative method to soap, right? So the soap that way back I wrote about. So I created the acronym LISTEN.
And that
so,
stands for,
yeah, so I'll tell you. So L stands for love. And this is really a process, step by step, of connecting to self-love and asking questions like, is this loving to me? So like, as the simplest thing one can do as a takeaway thought even, is when you're in doubt and you don't know if you should say yes or no, or, you know, and it's like, oh, when you have that kind of what I call chaotic vibration, then you say, is this loving to me? And the first thing that comes up is the answer. And if it's not loving to you, don't do it. Because, you know, we falsely think that we're making everyone else happy by doing things that push us beyond our own capacity. Now, I'm not saying never do things to make other people happy. To the contrary, you can do that. But check in. If it brings you this joy, and you know, like, you know, giving is a lovely activity. It feels great if it feels great. But if you're giving because you have to, or because you should, or because I think then we need to look a little deeper. Ask the next question. What got you to believing that thought, right? So that's L. So the next one is inquiring that thought. So we're thinking, what are the thoughts you're thinking? How do you get to that thought? What are the belief systems that are behind this? So one of the reasons that I believe I developed cancer was because I believed that I was, and it's embarrassing, but whatever, that I was so strong that I could take anything. In other words, you know, the partner at the time was going through a hard time, and therefore was not acting in a way that was loving to me. But I thought, well, I understand why they have this. So in my compassion and my empathy got the best of me. And so I was like, well, I can take it. It's okay. I can take it. And basically, because I'm so strong, I'll be fine. I'll manage it. Sure. I did. I managed it. It manifested. And that woke me up to, okay, whoa. I gotta manage it differently. This is not my thing. But that was based on a thought, on a belief system. It had a should, like I should be able to understand deep enough that I need to experience what I'm experiencing, right? So that's the I, the inquiry. S is symptoms as symbols. So to really look at how you talk about your symptoms, your relationship to them, and see if you talk about your life that way, or a relationship that way, or so in other words, let's explore the many sides of things. So that's S. So LIST is touch and trust. So touch is really about this work that I do, and that I've what's the word? It's not just continued, I've added more to and expanded. And ultimately getting to trust, right? Because when you can listen to your body, then you also know that your body doesn't lie to you. It just can't. And then you like you can still lie to yourself if you want to use thoughts, but your body's not going to lie to you. So that's the T. And E is engage. So to engage is really like a process of empowerment, but it's really engaging the world around you. It's an energetic reality. It's a presence. And I kind of explained what blocks it, what gets you there, and N is now. Why wait? So that's my program, and I explain in this book so I have a program online that I actually bring people through as well. But I also have a book that has so many case studies, no right names, of course, everything's protected, but that explains each step, several cases for each of those steps. And that's kind of the process I used myself. That's how I came up with it.
Sure. And the online course, again, if somebody wants to give that a go before going to a retreat, absolutely a great idea. Plus picking up the book itself.
Yeah, so it's what is it? Mind Body Reboot is actually the name of the course.
Mind Body Reboot. I love it.
Yeah, and it is this listen program plus a 1-day online Zoom experience of actually doing the very fundamental resetting, rebooting work on the physical therapy. And that's a big Bowen College website.
Okay, now we're completely going 180, but we're really not. We're just going right to here. I've got an angel for you named Joy. You've never met her before, he said facetiously. She's the emotion, joy, and angel who's the ambassador communicator, just meant to help you feel more comfortable in what you've already got. Your listening skills don't have anything to do with up here. If you're thinking about the laundry you left wet in the washer, you forgot to put it in the dryer, you know you're up here. That's called thinking. Most of it can be a waste of energy, but guess what? It ain't going away. So being in your heart, basic listening, you're like, oh, pointy bird singing beautifully. I love it. That was a true moment. You were listening. Here's Joy. Catch a compliment from her. Keep it private to yourself. Get a beautiful hug. That's 2 things. And then get something for us to talk about that she says we need a reminder on. Good, good, good.
Well, yeah, no, I think the reminder is how beautiful our bodies are. Really to acknowledge that, that in our society we spend tons of energy trying to change it, trying to fix it, trying to, if you got curly hair, you want flat hair. If you got, the other way around, if it's long, it should be short. If it's short, it should be long. If you're this, that, or whatever, it's something else, right? It's not good enough just as it is. And that doesn't mean that, if you are obese, that you may not, for health reasons, want to do something.
Yeah.
But it doesn't start by hating your body. It starts by loving your body. And by giving yourself a big hug and saying, okay, wow, I love this body long enough that, and deep enough that I want to be in it longer. What do I need to do? And just really connecting to, what comes up. Oh, I need to walk more. Okay, gee.
So it's parallel to what we've talked about the first part of the show with, in terms of, the medical, the diagnosing, the everything else, dropping to here. And we could do it a different way. If you're a professional golf player who's gone through some turns and twists in life, if all of us, the audience, you, me, we're looking at that golf player, they're about to start a tournament, we'd love to know, are they going to be up here? Or are they going to be down here when they play the golf tournament? Down here, higher score, lower score, whatever it is, a better performance. They're enjoying the game. Their swing is more natural. They're a good golfer. And they might even get a hole in one and be surprised. But when they're up here, you can't be shocked if you're shanking the ball a little.
Yeah, I don't play golf, but I can see that happening.
Yes. Okay, Charlotte, for you. Another compliment. Get 3 hugs if you would. And then a topic for us to hit next. And the 3rd hug, could it be big so the audience sees you even shimmy a little? I don't even know what the word shimmy means, but get a nice big hug where you go, oh my. I can't see you, so I better lean out.
Okay. You have to hold it longer for the subject, because I was enjoying the hug. Sorry. Subject. Wow. Okay. Death.
Ooh.
I
We
didn't
just went big here.
expect that one. It's not really my subject of that I really talk about a lot, you know.
You're not like the doctor who says, "Oh, you're going to die and there's nothing I can do for you." Next.
No, I mean I think, well, let's try, right? It doesn't hurt, right? It's only true to you if it's true to you, right? So that's how I live my life anyways, you know. And I often say things out loud, and you know, my partner knows this. In fact, my books were written out loud, because if I write down, then I disconnect from it, because I'm really writing this way. So now I can also take I'm taking a side point, but so death. I think death. Why? I don't know why it came up, but that doesn't matter. I think we don't talk about death a lot, and you know, as a culture, like secretly, a lot of people fear it because they don't have a relationship with it, you know. And so I think it's good. Like I know I brought up, I'm not planning on dying, but I did bring up, oh, you know, I think I'll do a will, and it terrified my kids because they thought, like, what do you mean? And I said, no, I'm just, you know, just gonna leave a piece of paper behind and letting you know that I'm doing it, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that I'm intending to die, you know. So I think it's good to bring up, you know, to also see if there's a big fear of death, you know, because I think there's people who have religion that is a strong part of them, or spirituality, which is a strong part, and then you feel like you're in trust on some level. But if you aren't one of those people, and you are more sort of like so-called the science, you might not have a relationship with death, and a lot of your actions in life are to get away from death. You know, and I think that's and maybe that does tie into my experience, right? Like actually.
Yeah.
You know,
Here, I'm going to digress for 1 second, though. There's a movie called Peaceful Warrior. Dan Millman, it was his personal life story as a gymnast in like the late 1960s. Way of the Peaceful Warrior is the book. It's beautiful. Book won't ruin the movie won't ruin the book. Disney should have done the movie. It's got Nick Nolte, Scott Micklowitz, Amy Smart, blonde actress. But Scott Micklowitz plays the gymnast. It's supposed to be at Berkeley, filmed at a different university, but there's a deleted scene on the DVD where Nick Nolte, they've been robbed, they're down to their skivvies, and they're walking to a bus stop. And they don't have any money, and it's funny because the old man works at a gas station. He's the Mr. Miyagi figure of Karate Kid, if you want to think of this as an adult spirituality type movie, but there's none of the lingo in it. A little bit of Zen, mostly gymnastics, but it's all an allegory, if I said it right. But he's talking about death, and he says it's really no different than puberty. Yeah, a little extra than puberty, but it's just a transformation, nothing to worry about. It's an incredible scene. And then he looks over at the bus stop where there's a ton of people. Now the old man's in one of those tops with the holes, tank top thing, and boxers. And he says the real problem is, or the real thing is, a lot of us don't even get started with living. And he's looking at the bus stop. And the guy is like, how are you going to get on this bus? You don't have any money. And he just looks at the bus driver and is like, who's going to deny an old man and his skivvies a ride home? And the bus driver's like, get on the bus. But so it's a beautiful scene that really is so casual about death that I always do a what, you know, because we just think it's like either you think you wink out or it's this momentous thing. But when your time's your time, your time's your time. Some of it's written. A lot of it's written.
Yeah, I mean, it would seem, I think the written part is interesting, you know. Yeah, I believe that is true for many people. I don't know if it's true for everyone, but Charlotte, yes.
Yeah, she's the one carrying me over on my last breath. I supposedly go during my sleep. So I'm lucky it's not a Mack truck. I'm like, yeah, I won the lottery stepping off the curb, and then blam. But here, get one more fun, quick observation or wisdom or insight, advice for us all for living more, loving more, allowing more, having more fun even. What's Charlotte have for us all?
Yeah. It's to bring your attention to the moment that you're in. Literally, you know, like if you're washing dishes, feel the water, you know, be with the soap bubbles. You just actually be in the moment itself. And, you know, actually the truth of all that is, and then you don't feel a pain, and then you don't, like, the mind takes you away from that real presence.
Okay, Min, another angel who's light waves of energy and water. On my book cover, it's her and her as metallic balls of light. And then on my website, it's a white ball of light overlapped, kind of double overlapped white balls of light. But here's a silhouette of an angel named Min, like Minnesota, Lakota Sioux word for water. She's light waves of energy and water, very professorial. If you don't, you can get anything you need personally. Get a hug, maybe smell an ocean, but you'll tell us which ocean you're catching the scent of around you. People at home, you can do this. You can just ask, receive, allow, ask, and receive. Catch that ocean you know you're not getting to in the next year. It's 2 years away. You missed Nantucket, you missed the Seychelles, Hawaii. And then if you could, something for us all from Min.
Not getting a message from her right
Oh,
now.
okay, how about a key word, a reminder?
Well, flow is the word that comes, but it's associated to water. So I don't know in this case if I got it from her or from her proxy.
There you go. Okay, Dull Knife, a Native American chief whose wisdom, original name was Morningstar. Fantastic wisdom with some humor, a sense of humor. You should be able to, he's always crystal clear. After angels, this is a walk in the park.
Well, I have so sovereign, you know, that we are sovereign warriors.
Okay, do you have a last request for a figure? Would it be Mother Teresa, Mary, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Plato, Thich Nhat Hanh? You mentioned the dishwashing thing. That's in his little book, Pieces Every Step. And he reminds you that even just washing the dishes can be a pleasant experience if you just let go. There's a natural part of us that'll gravitate to the moment, but you got to really get out of your own way. And that's, again, what you teach us all. Is there a favorite figure? Red shirt, Geronimo?
Well, you know, no, the Archangel Michael.
Got Gabriel right here. Give me 1 second.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. And if you want to put your hand out and feel him, some people putting their hand out might get sparkles on their toes. It's what Manon said earlier. You try too hard and you're so focused on the hand or the fingers, he'll get through by putting sparkles on your toes or on your back instead. You'll connect. It's just, are you willing to pay attention? And anyone who needs distraction, take a look at the purple on one side and the rainbow light edge on the other. And you can listen. For anyone having a bit of resistance, which is all of us on every Tuesday, you'll hear your own voice instead of his. But the second you talk yourself into relaxing a little more, Jimmy, calm down. Sarah, let go a little more. Breathe. Just breathe a little. You're going to hear his voice come in full with lots of personality and humor. And what did you get for us, Manon?
I really got the word love. That's
Je vous en prie. Okay, so tell us a little bit about love. This is about the most important thing you could tell us the entire show. We've had a lot of important messages, your books, your show. You've had very special divine life experiences, but in the end, love is all there is. Love Actually, the movie, all this other Beatles songs. Love, 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 love. And yet, Look at Twitter, social media. We wish we had a love meter for all the social media stuff. 40 million tweets in the last 6 days. What percentage actually even mention the word love? 1% of 1%, 5%? Let's be optimistic, 12%. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of room for all of us to do a little more love, a little less thinking. Manon, I didn't mean to take away from your love speech. Let's have it.
It's all true. Yeah, no, again, it's what you focus on, right? Is if you make, just at first it might be an effort to notice the love in a situation, or the love in the situation you're in, even if it's awkward, whatever.
Yeah, awkward.
Then you start seeing it. It shows up. It's a bit like gratitude. It's the same. If you're grateful for the sun, the wind, the smell of nice things that come your way, and you actually notice it, then you notice it more. So it becomes very easy to see it everywhere. And it's the same with love. If I walk down the street, I smile at people because, I feel like, wow, other humans, it's like, sometimes people smile back and they're like, or they turn their head,
Yeah.
And others are just like, is that a different creature, whatever, not my problem. I'm just doing me, and I think, yeah, a lot of that can help people. I do believe that if we focus more on love, there'll be more love. It's
Yeah. I love it. I think it was Mary or Jesus said in the last 7 years, love isn't, I always forget everything, but love isn't everything. Open your eyes to see love. It's a constant. You never lost connection with it, but your brain, you're thinking what you know, all those important things that aren't so important will pull you away from it, so that you're like dental floss. The beginning of Christmas Carol, Scrooge, that we all know is a bad guy at the beginning. We forget that we're him. And by the end of the book, he's actually still a great business person, but full of love, generosity, compassion, kindness, saying hi to strangers. You'd actually want to meet him on the street. And yet that was 79 pages. And his transformation was in about 2 minutes of dream time, stretched out in all the movies, black and white, the 50s, Disney, the animated, stretched out over, a 45-minute story with a ghost of Christmas past, present, future. You don't have to have ghosts kick your butt. You can simply do a little mindfulness technique. And speaking of which, what's one of your favorite mindfulness techniques that you've already mentioned? One, the street, waving hi, saying hi, greeting people, being kind for no reason whatsoever. Can you give us one more blockbuster insight that works for you, as fun, we can all use daily or weekly?
Well, I think it's checking in. It's like, is it loving to me is one of my check-ins, but the other thing is to acknowledge and realize how we can change the mood we're in, or the experience we're having at every single moment. So we can, and it goes back to the love thing, but you can just say, am I in this experience, or what am I making of this experience? And then you realize, like, oh, I'm up here, or, I'm in here, or whatever. And then you go, oh, let's go back here and let's connect, and then your experience is completely different. And then and it's not a thought. Love is not a thought. It's a feeling. And you actually connect with it, and then it comes off you. And then you're going to attract it from others, right? And then there's more of it. So it really is a large feeling. And that's why it's so much fun. Like joy. Actually, joy.
That's why, if you don't mind, sorry, I held her up there for a long time. Can we have 5 different exercises at once, but only one has to come through? And this is really more for the audience, because the ego, the thinking, the psyche, what you know can only block this much. Now, this much is a lot to be underground in life for 30 years or 2 lifetimes, but it's very limited. It's keen, it's cunning, but it ain't smart, or the other way around. I always forget. But the point is, so if you wanted to smell flowers, let Joy the Angel bring it to you. Now, Manon might start getting 5 different experiences here, but that's okay. you can ask her to bring you the beach. So it could be Hawaii with hibiscus in the air. I'm going to do a lighter, have Joy add pink light. We know pink light is not part of the yellow, gold, white, what a gold, yellow, what am I missing? Whatever this is, see some pink light on it. Ask for a hug as well. Ask her privately, is she there? Hey, are you there? And you're going to hear, yeah, waiting. Ask her a question, get an answer, get a hug. That's like 6 things now. So Manon, tell her to sock it to you. And hear a compliment on your survivor story from Greece, not to go back to it, but just hearing you were being looked out for. And if you don't mind her saying what angels are saying, you were being looked out for is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I that's really what I hear. It's like, we've got your back, you know? It's
Yeah,
like,
and it was totally terrifying. That's why we skipped I've never skipped details on the show, but this isn't really, it's angels, positivity, and love. We don't, get into all the details. Although lately I've had people crying, releasing, and that's normal is, you can get tears. You can start yawning. I've had people yawn for 5 hours straight, not for the show. We don't go 5 hours ever. But 5 hours straight of yawning or 3 hours straight because you're releasing, it's built up. And it's back to, you could have a serious cancer. It ain't about the cancer. And obviously it's important. We're not taking away from the cancer or medical treatment. See your doctor, take your pills, do all that stuff. Manon is turning in her grave right now and she's not in her grave. But my point on this is there's always something more and you want to make sure you're attuned to love. When you're here, bam. But I'm taking from your thunder. So tell us one more time about how big the heart is.
well, I think it joins joy. So the way I see joy, and it's funny because I actually don't like champagne, the taste, but I love the experience of the champagne, the shimmering and the glass and all of it, all of
Pink
that.
champagne, pink.
It's not even fake. I just don't like the taste. It's something in it I don't like. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't change. I cut off the experience right at the bubbles and that jubilation, and I see the heart with bubbles of joy, and that's how I that's how I envision it. It's like one big happy.
Okay, so I've got to digress and go. We're going to wrap it up here, but I want to mention the Healers Café. You've done this show since about 2017. I'm going to guess there's 200 or so episodes. The point is a lot of amazing guests. Where is one of the best spots? Obviously, anybody can look up the Healers Café and Manon, Manon Bolliger, and find it. But is it on all the usual spots? Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts?
It's on the usual spots and also Rumble. On YouTube and Rumble. But because I deal with a lot of health people in this, sometimes it's only audible on Rumble.
Yeah. And your Telegram channel, again, it's not automatically open. A person can come in, submit a form, you'll review, and then they can get access in there. But it's Patients for Rights, the number 4.
Correct, yeah.
So patients, plural, for the number rights, plural, is the code or whatever I'm trying to say, the phrase you use to get into Telegram to find you. And they can always shoot you a direct note too, but you'll just, figure that out. They'll figure it out. And if it's meant to be, it'll happen.
Through the websites, if you're not on Telegram, because I don't think there's actually a form. I don't think the technology's quite there, or if it is, it's quite there. But through the form, you can always say that you heard me in this show and you want to reach out, and then you'll have I have a great little support team that makes sure I get things, because if it's sent directly to me, I really try not to be inundated by too much media.
Okay, last thing, let's be redundant and let's be silly. Do angels exist, Manon?
How could they not?
And what's a final message about tapping angels, trusting that, it's a big task if we just leave ourselves with ourselves. We got to live with ourselves every day of our lives. It's going to feel like Mount Vesuvius, Mount Olympus, name a big mountain, Mount Washington or Banff, Canada, one of those big peaks. to try to get to the top, get clearer thinking, you know, you get the views at the top, but you can't live up there. So it's the ebb and flow between here and here and here. What's your reminder about angels can help out, and a little bit of grace or a little bit of letting go, whatever, assistance?
Well, you know, I think for me, that light really was light from angels. I mean, in retrospect, I didn't know it then. But if you live your experience in the experience, then you know everything you need to know.
Mm.
But my real test, you know, when my mom passed away, she passed away deliberately, as in she chose that this is it. She's had enough of this life. And so it was more like a celebration, you know, hard to say it quite like that. But I said, okay, you do me just one thing, send me a sign, like a clear sign. You know, my mom's got a wicked sense of humor. So after I got back home and I'm sitting on the porch, and there's not a bit of wind, like zero wind, and I've got two of those lanterns. What are they for wasps, or to, that's what theoretically they say. I don't know that it makes them go away. Anyway, one of them turned so loud that I'm like, what on earth is going on? And I was like, okay, is there wind there? I sat back down, turned the other way, and I was just, and then I burst out laughing. I just said, okay, all right, thank you. You know, we've got this. The veil is not that thick.
And so you had asked her for a sign. That was the sign. It was the type of wasp thing that makes a noise or spins. And
I didn't ask her for that sign. I just asked her, show me a sign.
yeah.
There's no explanation, no wind.
No leaves moving, no wind. It was one of those, you're scratching your head, but at the same time, you kicked down to your heart and said, thank you. You got it. The light bulb went off.
And it's almost as soon as I said that, like she stopped, you know, and it was like, okay. And then I could just feel her, which is, you know, an interesting, yeah, it's just, I think that veil is very thin.
I think so, but you have to be out of the mentality of you're a scientist. There's a huge thing right now with disclosure, UFOs and everything else. I'm not taking away from any of that, but you could do that for a million years because you're dealing with humans and you're dealing with structure and words and emails and research and this and battles back and forth over what's what. And then everyone jumps in and does that 360 thing. Well, it can't be, it is, it isn't. Why didn't you do this? And meanwhile, you can meet angels, you can meet your relatives, you can meet Gandhi, you can meet Einstein, Steve Jobs, you can meet Carl Jung, but you can also meet light beings. So think of it this way. I had an analogy. I went on a 7.5-mile run to build up some chi, Shakti energy for this. And it's a brutal run, but I got these Nike Vaporfly shoes that are incredible. And only my 5th run, it's like going from a wooden tennis racket to a modern carbon, whatever they make tennis rackets out of today. The technology, oh my God. And I've run for 40 years. So I'm on a run and I'm like, how do I explain light beings versus just aliens or non-human life or anything? And this is a lot as a subject matter. But what I'm trying to say is sharks and dolphins now, or whales. If angels are dolphins, then light beings are just pure light, unconditional love. When they take you out for a bite, you're coming back intact. That's why the sharks, you don't want to deal with sharks. Why swim with sharks? Don't even. You want to swim with dolphins. You want to play with whales. I think that's the nicest metaphor I can leave everyone with. There's unconditional love in you and around you. Appreciate at least some flowers, hummingbirds, your pets. They can hear you. You can hear them. What are you going to allow for is how I'm going to leave this for everybody in the audience. But I have to say, Manon, you are incredible for your passion, your light. I talked to you before your mom passed. After your mom passed, you were glowing every time since then that I've talked to you. I had heard the wasp story before at least once, and I loved hearing that. And so it's just a total treat to interact with you. Thank you for being on this show, Angels, Positivity, and Love.
Thank you very much for having me here. It was great.
I look forward to having you back in 2024 and beyond. So thank you again from Canada, Manon Bolliger.